intelligence business. You always tell a European shoe, just a little trick if you ever go into a restaurant, look at what kind of shoes people are wearing. You'll know they're a Russian spy or somebody if they've got those European shoes on. That's the way we used to pick it out. Little things like that. But the key is United Nations vote against us. They're not supportive of the United States and our initiative, especially now under our leadership. The credibility we've lost around the world. We need to be the pillar of strength. Not that we're going to go in and bomb the hell out of everybody. But we are going to target you if you are a threat to the United States. The threat on our southern borders now, from Mexico on down to Caracas, Venezuela, is a bigger threat than anything going on in Afghanistan or Pakistan. Over 40,000 almost now murdered south of our border. The border cities are in chaos. And then they're going to come up with Fast and Furious to solve it all. I hope they take Eric Holder away in cuffs next month. Lock him up. And I hope they go to the White House, because someone's got to pay for those Border Patrol agents, those ATF agents that are on the line every day down there in that southern border, and some of them being killed because of irresponsible decisions made by inept leaders in Washington, D.C. I have never in my history of my life, and I went in West Point in 1957, they taught me how to lead, they taught me tactics, they taught me strategy. But never in my life have I seen the inept leadership across the board, extension into the Pentagon, the CIA, that we have today. We don't deserve that, ladies and gentlemen. We don't deserve that as hard-working people, to have inept people, not only in political candidates, political members of Congress, political appointees. We don't deserve that kind of amateurism at our national level. And that's what it is. Amateurism at its best. And that's what we have to look at when we look at national security. The ineptness of our ability to operate and function as a country today. I'm not sure, but I have an inclination Obama's going to go down big time. He's disintegrating. What they're going to come up with, we're not sure. If it's Hillary Clinton, we're going to take her down as well. And ladies and gentlemen, again, it's not partisan politics I'm talking about. I'm talking about inept people in government. And certainly we have enough people in Congress, even representing the Republicans. I want to see some warriors. I asked this last night at the VFW. How many of you can name me 5 warriors in Washington, D.C.? Now, the difference between a warrior and a leader is a warrior will fall on his sword for what he or she believes. I will fall on my sword for you. I would hope you'll fall on your sword for me. Name me 5. All right? Don't have to do it. Just write it down. Give me a note. I'd love to see what you have to say. Alan West, I helped out on Fox News when he held a revolver against an Iraqi that they had captured, who had intelligence about some enemy in the area. And Alan West clicked off a round next to that gentleman's head. Guess what? He spilled the beans. Saved over 100 lives. And then his brigade commander was going to charge him and court-martial him for a serious offense. Intimidating, harassing an enemy prisoner. Okay? I know you're going to ask me about waterboarding, aren't you? I spoke in Orange County a couple years ago, and I had Congressman Duncan Hunter. Thank you, that's my martini. Thank you, Rick, you're always there. Duncan Hunter and I can't remember his name. Anyhow. And I had General McInerney, my partner in crime, former Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, sitting there, and it was that whole discussion about waterboarding about 2.5 years ago. And so I had this plant in the audience. I said, you got to make sure you ask me about waterboarding. So hand goes up in the back. "Sir, what do you think about waterboarding, all that's going on?" And John McCain's against it and calls it torture and all that. And I'm looking over at these congressmen, General McInerney, and I said, "You know, I love waterboarding." I said, "It's just terrific." I said, "It takes about an hour, okay? You scare the hell out of the interrogation individual, and he tells you everything you want to know in about an hour, okay? Now, after that, about 4 o'clock in the morning, that individual is tired, so you let him go to sleep, or her. They wake up the next morning, they got a little bit of a headache, no scars, no cuts, no missing limbs. They're happy they're alive in the morning. You're happy because you got all the information out of them. By God, I love waterboarding. Anyhow, these congressmen are going crazy. They're looking at me. "Oh my God, I don't believe he said that." It was about 450 people in Orange County, California. Well, about 2 weeks later, Duncan Hunter was on C-SPAN. I just happened to be watching it. And he says, "You know, I just found out something great about waterboarding. It's not as bad as people think." And so he went on to explain it a little bit. But, you know, those are all the myths that are created. And, you know, John McCain, God, he's like Senator Lugar. They're so weak. God bless him. He served his country. But, man, they're all over the place, you know. And Lindsey, his lapdog, Graham, nonpartisan. But I'll tell you what, these Republicans got to stand up or we're not going to put them back in office. They're out. They're absolutely out. So I wrote this article a couple weeks ago. I'm going to end right now because I know it's a long day and we're about an hour over. And Lisa promised me and Jack a martini. So I have to have it for medicinal reasons, you understand, you know. So here's what I wrote 2 weeks ago. Congress, you, along with the courts and the executive branch, are continuing down the path of destroying America. Our Constitution and articles therein do not provide for national suicide. Enough is enough. We are broke as a country, now $14.8 trillion in debt, and a gigantic bloated government and bureaucracy that I know we can cut 47%. 47. We've done the figures on it. We've got all the agencies, we've got all those organizations that we know we can cut. 47% of the federal government. And you know what? We'll be fine and dandy letting the states handle most of the things and the local communities handling most of the things. We don't need you, federal government, to do all of these things. You don't need to tell us what to do. And here's what we tell the congressman. We do not need you other than to represent us, the people. Abide by and protect the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I would further suggest to the American people that Congress's first order of business is to start eliminating and downsizing government organizations and budgets. That's what I would do if I was president tomorrow. As well, start eliminating federal legislation, delegislate rather than legislate. Go to work to reduce government and spending now. Disallow all lobbyists and special interest groups. You work only for the people, no one else. We need term limits on elected officials more now than ever. We need resignations of all of those who have violated their oath, who are corrupt and inept at their job. Now this is sort of innovative. You guys probably think I'm crazy, guy from Montana, but here would be my request to the senators and congressmen. Stay in your states that you represent at least 9 out of 12 months. Spend no more than 3 months of the year doing the people's business in Washington. Make use of the electronic age. 3 months out of the year will provide you sufficient time to legislate and vote on measures and issues with this one thought in mind. You will be a greater asset to the country to whom you represent and to the country to stay away from the addiction of Washington and the belief that you need to legislate as a lifeblood to your elected office. It would be very appealing to all of us at the federal and state level if you would start to deregulate, delegislate many of the laws and regulations that are unnecessary to run our government efficiently and produce more productivity for our future generations. The national call to action That's what we're doing here today, reinvigorating, reinforcing the Constitution and the way we do business. The Declaration of Independent States, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men and women, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such a form as to them shall seem most likely to affect the safety and happiness of the people. William Ernest Henley, 1849. This was actually penned in 1875. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul, from a poem called Invictus. We are watching while Washington burns and self-destructs before our eyes. Hopefully now, America, you will awaken, and we, in fact, must awaken the sleeping giant. We did a survey about a month and a half ago. World War II, about 70% of America was the sleeping giant. And you remember Pearl Harbor, Tora Bora, and the Japanese admiral. We don't want to wake the sleeping giant. Today, we estimate the sleeping giant to be less than 20% in America, with America mostly still remaining clueless about what's going on in the world and in this country. And that's pretty sad. We are not going to permit the current leaders in the White House and the halls of Congress to continue in their efforts to lead us down the road of progressive socialism and the destruction of the republic. The patriotic revolution that I forecasted well over a year ago is now happening. We constitutionalists face a battle that is unknown to previous generations, so we must be aggressive in our collective efforts to continue the change and changing the tide. The fate of the country is now in our hands, and the plea from the majority of our citizens is to enforce the Constitution, severely limit the federal government and its out-of-control spending and control and bureaucracy. There is a growing list, and we have a list of over 120 violations now of the Constitution and the oath of office by the current elected and appointed officials in Washington, D.C. Corruptness, dishonesty, and treasonous events and actions are occurring before our eyes, and they effectively thumb their noses at us and have sold you to the highest bidder. Lincoln issued this warning in his inaugural address. Any people anywhere, being inclined and having the power, have the right to rise up and shake off the existing government and form a new one. That is our crisis. And as Deneen says, that situation is at hand right now, as our other speakers have also alluded to. Let me just repeat the oath, and I'm going to close. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, domestic and foreign, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. You've been a great audience. Thank you for having us. Look forward to coming back again. God bless all of you.